good morning. Or if you're watching this in the future, sorry. If everything in this video works out, you guys are currently living in a country run by Papa John Schnatter of pizza fame, and you know why. But for my friends of today who are confused, right now, John has all the makings of a rock-solid presidential bid. This man's a self-made, hustle-grind-set CEO billionaire who's been in the public eye for a long time, is a master of tangential speech with a grievance from being betrayed by the woke elite, and, most importantly, he's bored. Most of our current political landscape is built on these things, but John is somewhat unique in that he has all of them before even throwing his hat in the ring. That is a strong advantage. The only other guy to have a full kit is the president right now. You can Google Donald Trump Sr. if you're not sure who I'm talking about. And even this guy didn't collect all the necessary political assets until he was actively campaigning, though he is largely the reason that they've become so essential. Anyway, John is already miles ahead in terms of preparedness, but these on their own don't make a candidacy. So I've decided to step in and build Papa John's political strategy for him. He's 64 years old at the time of making this video, and if he plays his cards right, he'll be ready for a 2044 run. Before we get started though, I'd like to make clear that political strategy is not something I am familiar with at all, but I think I can figure it out. For a jumping off point though, I found this website from Norwich University, likely a holdout from Australia's protest against women being enrolled in wizard colleges. They lay it out as follows. Assemble a campaign staff, build an effective and efficient campaign strategy, fundraise and budget, and communicate your campaign message. Some of this feels redundant and most of it's already been handled by John, like the finance for example. So what we need to do is utilize the existing good stuff and cover up the bad stuff and figure out how to mobilize in a way that makes the best use of our campaign finances and my time. So let's get started with the obvious, assembling a campaign staff. Done. I can at least try and dress for the occasion. That's gonna get hot. As John's campaign strategist and future press secretary, I've already combed through his entire life, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there. For example, did you know that Papa John is one of the very few non-tech CEOs to have a humble beginnings backstory that he is always telling?
Build 5,000 stores out of a broom closet.
That broom closet. That's John Schnatter saying, I want out of the bar, I want out of the broom closet, I want out of Jeffersonville, Indiana, and I want to live in the Garden of Eden.
It's kind of weird, but it worked well for connecting with middle America who think that they also have a humble beginnings and not a humble end as well. As John tells it, his work ethic is the love child of two men, no homo. His father and his grandfather, a couple of entrepreneurs with very different approaches and results. See, his father was a Democrat with 9 failed businesses, a drinking problem, and a deep love for betting on the ponies. Basically a cool guy who liked to fuck around and I want to hang out with. His grandfather, though, was a frugal conservative with 3 successful businesses, millions of dollars, and a life largely unlived. Loser! If it sounds like I'm simplifying things based on the politics of these men, no, that is how John tells it.
Where do you think you got your work ethic from?
My dad's side was Democrat, extremely liberal.
And even though John came out the womb a hustler, it wasn't until the early 80s that his dad would call on him to save their failing bar, which then just son John would do successfully by opening a carry-out pizza shop in the 1-car garage-sized room that he constantly refers to as a broom closet.
Sweaty broom closet with no air conditioning.
It's a big-ass broom closet. Probably took a wall down, not a broom closet anymore. It may sound like I'm nitpicking there, but let's remember, he's running for president. We need to be prepared for any smear campaign that could pop up, and this clip farm is ripe for bad actors to draw from. Sorry, you're probably not aware of the Papa John clip farm. So John has an Instagram page where he does pizza reactions, posts clips from his podcast appearances, and interacts with his loyal fan base.
That's burnt. That's not good. That's overcooked. Not good. Sorry.
The podcast clip farm is where the majority of his policy initiatives can be found, and everything else is what I call sweaty leather vest time.
Ah! That's pretty badass.
This Instagram page is everything he has to offer, though. It tells you that John loves his family, cares about his physical health, and is a libertarian by values but Republican by party. We'll get to that in a bit. Or as John would say.
We'll talk about cheese here in a second.
Let's actually get to campaign strategy. In addition to all the ways that this page helps us, it's also where I want to yoink our campaign slogan from. John has a ton of one-liners that would look great on a vest. There's some pretty good options here. There's direct quotes.
Revolt wouldn't be good at all for a guy like me.
That's pretty good. It shows he's at least aware of working class rage. Of course, we could go the easy route that plays on his legacy. Better policy, better America, President John. But a campaign slogan has to hit hard and from multiple angles at once. Obama really nailed this with Yes We Can, not only because it appealed to his base of disillusioned Democrats and independents, but also because it said something to the opposition party.
And those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can.
It served as an instant baked-in counter to their policy initiative of no, we can't do anything for any of you because it doesn't work except for all the places that it does, and no, it doesn't work there either. So we need to find something that serves this double purpose, and I'm leaning towards one that's already taken off with his audience of me.
A for effort, F for performance. It's just that simple.
It's just that simple is perfect. It's a mic drop for just about anything he says on the campaign trail, and since he's running on a conservative platform, John can capitalize on the idea that everything has a solution at step one, and if it doesn't, yes it does. This is usually referred to as common sense politics, an idea that his party heavily favors for all but one thing. From a campaign perspective, this speaks to Americans that distrust experts and research, which is not a dig, don't get me wrong, it's not a dig, it's just data. It's just that simple. You wouldn't want to argue with something so simple, would you? Are you dumb? And this is key for John because, as I said, tangential speech.
I mean, geometry, that's my world. That's where I excel. The quantum field, where you have the intent.
Being able to brush off difficult policy questions on the campaign trail in the same way that I just did is an OP strat that cannot be overstated. So we're going to lock in the "it's just that simple" campaign slogan. But these 4 words aren't all we stand to gain here. In fact, there's some bad stuff too that we're going to talk about. Like I said, this is a showcase of John's views, and it's a clip farm, so it cuts out all the insane or boring shit from his podcast appearances. And there's a lot of those. The podcast appearances are actually what tipped me off to John potentially entering the world of politics in the first place, because they're very political.
And that's where we're at in the country. And I think when you get away from the framers...
Like in a really, really weird way, John can't go 5 seconds without bringing up politics. It's bizarre. And now here I am talking about politics on the Twilight for Boys channel. Anyway, I tried watching all of these, but only made it all the way through this iced coffee one. No idea how this usually goes, but these guys look bored as hell. I'm guessing because John never really answers any of their questions. And this one's like leaning away, like there's a bad smell in the room, but I feel like he's just trying to show the camera that John's lawyer is sitting behind him. Anyway, this is the only podcast that matters because it's the only one where he just talks and talks and talks and talks. So very useful. And kind of harmful. In the other actual snooze fests, like the PBD podcast, someone who I'm guessing is PBD just pontificates, while John active listens. And not only is this boring, but John's desperation to get a word in leads to some campaign-destroying contradictions that I have to deal with. See, on the H3H3 podcast, John says that he would never even consider getting rid of garlic butter.
You ever think about cutting it for cost?
Me?
Yeah.
No way.
You live and die by the butter sauce.
Yeah.
But on the PBD podcast, he says that he did at one point get rid of garlic butter.
And so store number 3, we got rid of the garlic sauce.
Interesting story, John. Don't tell it again. Shit like this is how you lose to the anthropic brain scan of Jeff Bezos in the primaries. Shut up. All right, so we have our slogan and a general idea of John's politics, which is more than enough to capture party line voters. And now it's time to mobilize in the swing states, which in 2044 have shifted a bit, according to my time travel that I don't need to explain to you. So we've got Ohio, Georgia, Chinese Georgia, Fort Lauderdale, now located where Denver used to be and also its own state, one big Carolina, and, finally, reluctant Puerto Rico, whose votes are split almost exactly like they were when it came to statehood. Alright, so this is our electoral map for 2044, and while it may look different, each of these states presents a familiar challenge that we in politics already deal with today. And just to explain, a lot of this is a result of unchecked redistricting battles, land being sold to other countries and then consolidated, and in the case of Little St. James, which you may have noticed there, being added to the Trump Presidential Library for, quote, nostalgia purposes. I don't know what that means. Its voting population is effectively 0, but every state is guaranteed a minimum of 3 electoral votes by default, and its inclusion is a part of the Schumer No Hard Feelings Act of 2033. Anyway, if you live in any of these states, thanks, you're voting for Papa John. And if you live in any of these states, we'll deal with you later. This map is less than favorable to John. He'll need to secure every single swing state in order to win. If even one of these goes left, he is, for lack of a better word, super pegged politically. And while campaigning in swing states isn't hard for a political boy genius such as myself, it is still unpredictable. You can do everything right on paper, get endorsements from congressmen, make some beautiful empty promises, and sometimes you can get a strategic buff by just being from a swing state. But if you're less likable than your opponent, it's a lost cause. Thankfully, John is running against a Democrat, and no group of people in the history of our species has snatched as much defeat from the jaws of victory as these guys. It gives me a lot of hope that we're doing a likability contest against the most unlikable people ever. I don't care how well they mean, this dude sucks. So let's start simple with a humanizing and topical stunt that shows voters we love their home and even consider its residents to be, in some limited cases, people. We'll start in the heart of it all, Ohio. Even though he's from Kentucky, there is a home court advantage here. The two states share custody of Cincinnati in a sort of weird reverse divorce way. They love each other, but neither of them want to deal with this fucking guy. Seriously, Cleveland and Columbus don't even think about Cincinnati, dude. It's just South Toledo and North Lexington. Appealing to Ohio means understanding its history. Once serving as the powerhouse of American manufacturing, Ohio was the place to be if you were a working man looking to labor or a billionaire looking for it. Home to some of the world's wealthiest people, a beacon of American exceptionalism, a leader in the arts, and more recently, I hit a pothole so deep that it broke the door off of my car. So Ohio's seen a bit of a decline and lost all the things I just mentioned and gained a bunch of holes. But that history tells us a lot about how to speak to the people there. You see, it's working people, survivors of policy that considered them disposable, that matter the most. These are hard lives, the kinds that people want to be distracted from at the end of a long day. Distracted by basketball. So we're gonna get John to play a game of basketball with Cleveland sweetheart LeBron James, who at the time will be celebrating his 42nd NBA season and his son's retirement. If LeBron doesn't want to do this, we're just gonna AI generate it and he'll never even notice because he's busy with other stuff. Moving on to Georgia, where John's southern charm is agreeable with everyone who is already gonna vote for him. But in a presidential campaign, he's gonna have to win over the actual population of Georgia, not just the ones typically overrepresented by landmass in local elections. The usual strategy here is spearheaded by Stacey Abrams: get low propensity black voters to become high propensity black voters. We need to stop that from happening. Gotta admit, it's gonna be a challenge considering John has a history that will galvanize voters against him. And I'm not talking about garlic butter. Unfortunately, John's critical boredom is a result of his unemployment, which was a result of him saying the N-word on a conference call that he was only on because he was forced into media sensitivity training. First call with these people, by the way. Anyway, at the time of making this video, he is still actively defending himself against this, even though nobody except for me now is talking about it. The press kit on his website, usually reserved for making connections with journalists and other media people, has an entire section dedicated to that time Papa John said the N-word. I understand that all press is good press, except no it's not. This is not good press. Take it down. If he could at least say something normal about it, my job would be a lot simpler. It's just that simple, John. Make it simple. But it's always some bullshit like this. You're trying? That leaves a lot to the imagination, John. We haven't received an update on your efforts either, so fingers crossed by 2043 you've gotten yourself worked out. You had better not fuck this up or we're all going to prison. But it's my job to make people vote for him, not to make him electable. So we could try an inflammatory approach. I think that if John leans into this controversy, we could come out with a narrow victory. What he needs to do is offer an insincere, nothing apology where he mostly deflects blame, but at some point does say the word sorry. Rational people are not going to buy this, and they're not supposed to. We'll draw media coverage to the apology. Talking head debate panels, guy wearing sunglasses in car video, bot accounts doing low-tier rage bait, and really anything that makes the general left look like they're unwilling to accept this humble man's apology. Now we know there's no good faith apology to accept, but his voters won't agree. He said sorry. It's just that simple. The goal here isn't to drive political engagement in the cities down, it's to overwhelm it from the suburbs by using the tried and true method of weaponizing racial tensions against people who were just minding their own business. Now, there's a chance that this apology won't get much coverage. In that case, we'll need a trump card in our back pocket, only to be used if the polling doesn't look good by August. In this situation, the Georgia campaign will shift to a unique slogan that I'm not entirely sure about as the writer of this video, but I am sure about as the evil political version of myself in this video. Papa John, a different kind of N-word. Hear me out, because this slogan grants access to the "it's just a joke" defense, blowing clear past our racially motivated strategy in favor of a meme partisan approach. This move is less than preferable, because sometimes you end up attracting cringe weirdos with no social awareness that won't leave you alone. That will work itself out eventually, though. Anyway, the actual meat of this backup campaign would be demonizing the media who wouldn't let him tell his side of the story and instead let cancel culture smack him around. John acknowledges and owns that he used the N-word on that conference call, and I guess enough to need to practice not saying it. But nobody ever let him give proper context. He's a victim, right? A vote for John is a vote for a different kind of N-word. Nuance. To my team, please get him on a call and make sure he knows that it's nuance and not the other thing that he's thinking of. Moving on to Chinese Georgia, John has the difficult job of maintaining party-line xenophobia towards actual China while still pandering to the Chinese nationals that occupy and vote in Chinese Georgia. Getting people to vote against their own interest isn't just possible, though. It's easy. Our focus here will be mostly on information suppression, otherwise known by the much friendlier sounding term, microtargeting, which is a strategy of omission. We'll run all the positive stuff that makes John look cool here, and save the angry stuff for the people who rely on it to get motivated to vote. This ensures the right people know the right things, and the others know as little as possible. And as a bonus, it makes our cause their cause, so anyone who attacks us is actually attacking them, which isn't cool. And it's kind of fitting, since Papa John, the brand, recently dropped the apostrophe from its name, creating a million Papa Johns in the process. 1,000,001 including you. A little background here, Fort Lauderdale petitioned the federal government in 2037 to move out of Florida because hurricane season had begun to span 10 months out of each year, and the other 2 were construction. Bad for tourism. Denver, on the other hand, had experienced a mass exodus of people going back to LA following the explosion of the Stratus data center in Utah. So kind of just up for grabs, and prior to this, it had become a concrete hellscape with none of the original beauty that made people want to go there in the first place. So a perfect place for the new enclave of Fort Lauderdale. And while it may have been a blue stronghold in Florida, that is not the case in its new location. Governor Cruz handily won control of the state by wrangling a stray bot population that was just drifting around the Rockies after the Stratos thing. Citizens United does allow for this. I am an expert on voting. Assuming John can remain allies with the political leaders of Fort Lauderdale, he has a good chance to hold the state. And if Ted gets uncooperative, I will keep some artificial snow on me to scare him off. All right, time for the one you've all been waiting for. One Big Carolina, which is really just a swing state because North Carolina was a swing state and it had double the population that South Carolina did. We're gonna have to find a way to deal with these economic engines, otherwise known as cities. They technically have more voters, but the voters don't vote unless they get really riled up about something, or sometimes they get too riled up and then they don't vote. God, don't they suck? Too busy being an influencer or deciding between matcha and macho to do your civic duty, and they want to decide what happens in your suburb? Not if you vote for Papa John. In fact, Papa John will make it so that you decide what happens in their demon rat-run city. And that is how to drive additional turnout from anyone who doesn't care about politics but does care about owning the people that they hate. To appeal to these voters, we can rely on the inherent social disconnect that forms when people who rely on each other to function as a society are enraged to the point of paranoid psychosis. We can properly manipulate or sway our voters by convincing them that the people in the other place hate them and are always thinking of ways to ruin their lives rather than, like, how to get to work and stuff. Combined with a skillful use of rage bait on every screen they own all the time, you'll have an engaged voter population fighting over a bowl with such fury that none of them could ever possibly notice that we have already licked it clean. Unfortunately, this is a common tactic from our competition as well, so we'll need a bot farm to convince Sanctuary City voters that their votes don't matter. I mean, how could it if these small-town, small-minded people just cancel out your enlightened, walkable city vote anyway? Now, the most difficult poll will probably be reluctant Puerto Rico. Originally granted statehood as a perceived political gain for the left, Puerto Rico could have been a strong ally, had that come along with a recognition and protection of their cultural sovereignty. But to quote President Newsom from his 2032 re-election campaign, well, I'd love to do that for every one of our states. I mean, you don't think Hawaii wants the same? These people mean everything to our administration, and if they vote for us again, I will do everything in my power to advocate for someone to look into whatever it is these people want. For real this time, though. So the failures of the opposing party are actually a powerful weapon when you don't really have the sauce required to make people like you. This is called negative partisanship. With it, you can run an entire campaign and never say a single word's worth of policy. The only thing that matters is that we oppose them even if it hurts us, which it won't, and if it does, no it doesn't. And to build on this, we're going to lean into John being an outsider unlike the career politicians that drove these people to apathy in the first place. By combining these messaging tactics, we also give John cover for any time he fucks up. You can either say, yeah, well, he's not a politician, expect a little less polish, dude. Or you can say, yeah, but remember your guy, and then just make something up. It's very strong. And as a bonus, voters can accuse anyone criticizing John of negative partisanship themselves. Who would want to argue with someone who has Schnatter hate and insane toxicity syndrome? They are blinded by their shits. And that's it. Our core campaign strategy for the 2044 swing states. If all goes according to plan, I will see you guys in about 20 years. Alternatively, you can catch me in my next video, Twilight for Boys 2. Until then, when the night air is cool and the moon is your only company, gaze upward and know that I am working on my Twilight for Boys 2 video. Does the president have anything to say about the garlic butter controversy? Shut the hell up.